Well, Mike, you gave such a great example of that because you were like, "Oh, this guy's backed up. Why does he have those 2 machines sitting?" And that gentleman understood his customers so well that he was actually getting paid for those to just be available.
Sure.
Most people wouldn't even offer that and get paid to have a machine
Little.
sit there.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
that's
wish
like
I could do. I wish
like,
I could do that with all of my
how
machines.
the
That'd
hell
be
did this
great.
guy figure it out? He's the only guy getting paid to not be making chips.
Right.
Mike and I, we missed you, Nick, at the MFG show. But yeah, Mike and I got to go to MFG 2026 down in Fort Lauderdale. It was spectacular weather. It was spectacular speakers, networking, thought leadership, all of it. And one of the speakers was just so engaging, we had to have him here on the show. So we invited Kaihan Krippendorff from Miami. So it wasn't that far for him to get to Fort Lauderdale. It was a lot farther for the rest of us. But
Yeah.
he is here today to talk about sort of the future of manufacturing, how he's thinking about all these things, strategery, and all the other great things that
Well, he's got an
that he knows about.
engaging name, Paul. I mean,
Absolutely.
someone's like, "Hey, Kaihan Krippendorff." You're like, "I wanna hear what that guy has to say."
That's right.
Well, Kaihan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Paul. Great to see you, Nick and Mike.
Yeah, good to
Thanks for
see you, man.
being here.
Yeah, so why don't you introduce yourself and share a little bit about what you talked about at MFG, and then we'll just sort of get into, more what it means for the metalworking nation, the individual shops that are out there, how that they might think about their strategy over the coming years. And
Great. Yeah. Yeah. So I kind of wear two hats, but they kind of two businesses, but they're related. One is like a thought leadership business. I started my career in consulting. And then my passion is really strategy. I've written 6 books on strategy and I publish in like Harvard Business Review and places like that. And I give speeches. My wife kind of calls me an for-profit academic. So I do all the stuff that an academic would do, but I monetize it through speeches. I have some podcasts, the Outthinkers podcast, the Chief Strategy Officer podcast, Strategy at Scale podcast. And then the sister company is called Outthinker. It's like a think tank. It's composed of strategy officers. So people who in any company that are dedicated to strategy and growth, that's M&A or problem solving or pricing strategies. And so we have this kind of community of strategy officers.
Super
Wow,
cool.
this is, like, right up my alley and right up all of our I mean, this is really freaking cool. So,
Cool.
excited to hear what you have to share, man.
you do 3 podcasts. That's as much
Yeah.
as all of us
Yeah.
combined.
Uh-huh. Yeah, but we do 4 episodes a month. So, I've got one that does 2 episodes a month and then 2 other ones we just do 1 episode a month.
Gotcha.
Okay,
Yeah.
very
Yeah, it's very
good.
similar. I mean, some of our shows are every other week, and then this one's every single week, so, yeah, we're busy
That's
recording.
that's
You were saying,
dedication.
"Hey, you use the same, web podcasting software we do, so we didn't have to explain that. We could get right into the content."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Exactly.
I really like this one. We had another one before that was just kept crashing on us and glitching, and Riverside's good.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, they deserve the plug then.
So, Ken, tell us a little bit about what you talked about at MFG.
So, we really talk about like 3 things. One is just the idea that the games change in business and sort of what's the game change that we're experiencing in manufacturing and how do shops like adapt to that? And why do some companies fall behind and some stay ahead? And we talked about one element of that is proximity. That's really was the main theme. I could talk about what that is, but I think across every sector, you see this common theme that value is getting created closer and closer to when and where it's needed. So like additive manufacturing, digitization of value, all this stuff allows you to like create stuff when it's needed, And then the final thing was just about that in order to play this new game of proximity, it's not so much about understanding technology and tactics. It's really about the way that you think. You guys have had a lot of kind of like young next generation shop builders, on, and you talk about like how they think differently. And so it's about like, what is that new playbook that allows us to think about growing our shops or our businesses differently?
That's awesome. And you've written so many books. You just reminded me of a book that sounds very similar to what you just brought up. I read this book called The End of the World is Just the Beginning, and it was about
Hmm.
the collapse of globalization and how things are getting more regional. toward
Yes.
that
Yes.
whole proximity idea.
That's a big driver towards proximity. Yeah, the cost of distance increases, right? Because you have to now start applying a higher risk cost to sourcing things from far away, and that starts changing the calculus. It's not that it's going to go pure onshore, pure local production, right? But the math changes, and you're like, well, I could get it cheaper from far away, but I have to have extra inventory, and I got to carry that
Yeah.
inventory because I don't know if the supply chain is going to be disrupted. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Mhm.
think one of the big aha moments for so many leaders was this massive disruption with COVID, and then
Sure.
people I don't think were factoring the regional risk or the
Right.
lack of a regional solution into their whole risk calculus as much as they are now.
Yeah, and these, like, choke points that, when you have a well-run supply chain, you don't notice, you forget it's there, but,
Yeah.
we found out, oh my god, 30% of all oil goes through this one narrow strait,
Right.
and we didn't think of that necessarily as the choke points. These choke points start emerging, raising their heads as we start facing these kinds of pressures.
You can't spell high end without DN. If you're serious about taking your shop to the next level, it might be time to stop thinking in terms of good enough and start thinking in terms of capability, flexibility, and my favorite, automation. DN Solutions is helping manufacturers move into true high end machining with their SMX multitasking series, the DVF 5 axis machines, and advanced automation solutions designed for shops that want to run smarter, faster, and more competitively. The SMX platform gives you the ability to combine multiple operations into one setup, reducing handling, improving accuracy, and helping you get complex parts out the door faster. Their DVF 5 axis lineup delivers the precision, rigidity, and confidence manufacturers need for today's demanding aerospace, medical, and high performance applications. And when you pair those machines with automation, you're not just buying equipment, you're building a more scalable business. High end parts, high end capability, high end thinking. Because you can't spell high end without DN. Learn more at dnsolutions.com.
Our audience is, small. A lot of them are small to mid-sized machine shops, precision manufacturers out there. And they are builders. They are often technical in their craft. They're very good at that. Not as many of them really think strategically about how am I going to sort of grow this business over years. So, and they sometimes feel like a bit of a pawn maybe in this sort of a global shift of supply chains and more reshoring. And how can you help them think about how to capitalize on that, how to position themselves to be successful next year, 5 years, 10 years from now?
A good starting point is this idea. It's not my idea. Clayton Christensen, Harvard professor that coined the term disruptive innovation, he introduced this term called jobs to be done. And so, like, really thinking about what is the job to be done for your shop, right? It's not to provide a part, it is not to hide a machine, right? It is something else. And so, people will pay a little bit for a good part, but what they maybe are buying really is uptime, or maybe it is the confidence that something's not going to go wrong, right? And so,
Hmm.
starting with that job to be done, and you can price based off of cost, like how much it costs, and cost plus. You can price based off of the competition. How much are they charging? Maybe we could charge a little bit more, but if we start differentiating, then you can start charging closer to what the value is that you provide. And when you can shift towards that, then you can get greater margins, you can reinvest, and you put you on this positive track. Like, as an example, one woman that I got to work with, she's Julie Copeland. She has a company called Arbill. They probably provide supplies to a lot of your listeners, or to listeners like yours. They provide safety equipment like hazmat suits and gloves and stuff like that. Really low margin business. She goes to your purchasing manager, and the purchasing manager's like, "Well, can I get the gloves for 2 cents less? If I can get them for 2 cents less, I'm going to leave you and go somewhere else." Right? She was like, "Look, what's our job to be done? Our job to be done is not to provide cheap gloves or cheap safety equipment. Our job is to provide safety. What does safety look like? Safety looks like, let's take the safety equipment, but also let's do some OSHA compliance consulting to help you identify where you're going to have potential risks, falls and things. Let's provide training, safety training, right? And now let's bundle that together. And she did something that I call create out of nothing, creating a category of safety. And she called it safety care, this new product service. And now who is that valuable to? Let's not sell it to the purchasing manager. Let's sell it to the CFO, because the price that the CFO places on that is much higher than 2 cents per glove. It is about downtime. It is about, legal risk. It is about worker safety. And now all of a sudden she is getting much higher margins. She's got long-term contracts, loyal customers, and it transforms the business. So what do? You identify the job to be done, and then you reconfigure your offer to really, and who you sell it to target that job to be done. It's not just
Mm.
marketing, but actually like the product design too.
So I have a really good example of a manufacturer in the metalworking nation who really understood the job to be done, and it's aligned with safety, like you were just saying, Kaihan. And this company is Storch Magnetics, and so he deserves this plug. But he's got this, I forgot the name of the product, like the Highway Mag or something like that. But it's this big round drum that drives along the highway, and it picks up anything that's metal. So
Hmm,
you pull it behind like a trailer, and it picks up like nails and screws and things that could pop
interesting.
tires.
Hmm,
And he hired all these salespeople who were ineffective at selling it. And then he hired one lobbyist who
hmm,
talked about what it could do for highway safety. And he said the guy was able to make the spec required for, I think it was Michigan, basically spec in that you have to have this thing that he's the only one who makes, and it
There
you
you
know
go. Yeah.
solved all the problems for everybody. He's
Yeah.
like that lobbyist was expensive, but when you think about what it accomplished for me, it was the best sales guy I've ever had, and I was like,
Right.
"Well, that's awesome. That's like a really good example of
Yeah.
understanding the job."
The safety example that I think a lot of our listeners can relate to, the analogy I would make to that is what a lot of us do with having, vending machines on our tooling, right? Rather than me going out and pricing, oh, I can buy this insert for $10.52 or $10.42, whatever, from tons of different suppliers. I work with a tooling vendor that puts them in a vending machine on my shop floor that I'm, paying for as I use them. The value there, right, is that I have the right tool when I need it.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
don't have the downtime of a machine not running or something like that. So creating that extra value of not having to, one, have hundreds of thousands of dollars in tooling inventory to cover all scenarios, but having the tool I need when I need it is what I'm
Mhm.
really paying for.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Because your customer's willingness to pay goes up at the moment that they receive the value.
Right.
If you're gonna buy a bottle of water at a grocery store, you don't need that water right now, right? So you're not gonna you'll wait to shop around. But if you're at a sports stadium and you're thirsty, right?
It's $8.
You pay a lot. You'll pay $10 for that
Right.
$1 bottle of water. So if you can, that's what proximity also speaks to. If you can provide the value at the moment of need, the
Sure.
willingness to pay goes up. We can charge more. We can get higher margins, and our customers are also happy because they're getting more value.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
So the maybe the equivalent of that for a lot of machine shops that have probably dealt with this issue is, hey, I've got this piece of equipment down. I need a part over the weekend. I'm willing to pay whatever so that machine's back up by Monday, right?
yes,
It's
right,
it's normally a $200 part, but they're willing to spend $2,000 on it to have it by Monday.
right, right, exactly. Because
Yeah.
the downtime is worth that much more. Yep.
And then for the actual shop that's trying to sell to their end customer, the way I think about this, and I've been on this soapbox for quite a long time now, is, maybe you can't compete on price against the guy down the street that runs his shop out of the garage. But what you are providing is risk mitigation and confidence that you have built a system and a company that will reliably have on-time parts, just like you, Mike. On-time quality every time,
Right.
whatever your exact
Quality
slogan is,
parts on
right?
time
Quality
every time.
parts on time every time. You don't know the slogan, Paul, and that's why you
Sorry,
can't
Nick.
work there.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Mike's not offering me a job.
I was going to, but not now.
See, I
Well,
worked
now
for both of your companies, and I actually have an example for yours too, Paul, because like you guys, you sell a ERP system, a manufacturing
Mhm.
solution, but how much of what you do is really like consulting to help people become compliant for their AS9100 or whatever regulated achievement they're trying
Mhm.
to get, right? And you guys do so much of that
It's a huge part of it,
because
yeah.
you understand the broader job. So,
Yeah, and what they're willing to pay, as you're saying, like they're actually buying a bundle of things from you. Their willingness to pay is higher for them, so you can pool your profits where in different places, right? And so, like
Mhm.
for example, like there's a company you guys maybe have had them on or ones like it, but a company called Quick Parts, and they just got like 3D printing facilities
Mhm.
distributed around the globe, and if you need a part you send them the design and then they will print it close to where it's needed. So if you need to quickly get parts to lots of regions, then like 3D printing, additive manufacturing allows us to start doing that. So you won't be maybe selling the whole part, but there might be some customization. A lot of like auto parts, for example, that cost more to ship than they do to make. And so you can then print them at the garage if you need a replacement part, especially like old cars. I
mhm.
think that,
Mhm.
automobile manufacturers, they've really been leading additive manufacturing because of that cost. But then that allows for customization. You can get the lamps that like have your name on it or, designs that are personalized and installed in your car. And then what's really interesting with those types of technologies, more of what you deliver is digitally delivered. And this is, if you think it through, the marginal cost to deliver that is 0. It costs nothing to create it's the same price to produce 1 as it is to produce 500,
Mhm.
and that completely changes things, how you can
Mhm.
price. And then when you pricing something with a 0 marginal cost, you could technically give it away for free, and economic theory would say eventually the price goes down to 0. So then what do you do when you can give away for free? Either you give it away for free and it's a freemium and you make your money somewhere else, you're pooling the profit somewhere else, or you start pricing to value, you start delivering value. And if you take that further, what you're doing is you start charging for the outcome. You start charging
Mhm.
for downtime. You become an insurance company, right? And say, pay me this much per month and I'll guarantee that you won't have downtime.
Yeah, that model of, super rapid manufacturing. We're interviewing Jim from SendCutSend, who has built this exact model, starting with sheet metal,
Mhm.
where
Right.
you can send in your DXF file and a couple days later your part shows up. But they're now extending it to machining as well. And, there's other businesses that are similar. But yeah, it's absolutely.
Yeah.
And designing the tech stack behind it so that there's almost no human touch. And it really is just like accept the file and like 10 minutes later you could be making that thing.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I
that
think
just disrupts
yeah, it really
everything.
disrupts everything, and I think that's what we're gonna see in 2026. If 2025 was about figuring out how to use digital AI to do things more efficiently, I think 2026 is gonna be where AI gets arms and hands and legs, and all these automated, robotic physical things are starting to get plugged in with AI,
Hmm.
right? And I think that's gonna be really interesting
So
to
do
see
you
how
mean
that
like
evolves.
specific to like humanoids with artificial intelligence?
It's interesting. Yeah, I don't know if they're gonna be humanoids. So I've been thinking about this, right? So it would make more sense to have a robot that is designed for a certain function, you know?
Mhm.
But our world is designed for humanoids, for humans.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so in a way, I think that like what Elon Musk is doing with his humanoid and, in China, they're going crazy with these human looking robots. In a way, you're over engineering the robot because you don't need the robot to be able to do a bunch of stuff if it's just doing just picking up something and putting it over, right? But all of our spaces are designed for humans. So that thing now becomes multi-use because you can put it in one part of the shop and then move it to another part of the shop and it can
Yeah.
just adapt. So I do think it's going to be interesting, but I think that you got to redesign everything that we've designed for the last 300 years in order to make room for non-humanoid robots. I think humanoid robots just are more easily adopted.
If they really are gonna cost $30,000, like our buddy Elon says, then
Yeah.
and if they really can just, like, follow you around and watch you cook or
Mm.
clean or fold your laundry
Mhm.
or whatever, then, I'm
Yep.
in a lot of trouble with my automation system that I just launched. 'Cause mine
Right.
costs a little bit more than 30 grand, and it's not gonna do your laundry.
It's got some learning to
Well,
do, but I think
I
it's
I
potential.
I think probably the next evolution, Nick, would be the robot is loading the blanks into your machine, you know,
Yeah,
so that it can do even more part numbers or run longer than just over nighttime or the
that's what I'll be
weekend.
praying for, because otherwise I'm in a lot of trouble.
Sure.
And it can do the laundry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can yeah, when it's just done loading parts, it
Well,
can follow you
now
home
I
and
gotta figure out how to, like, recapture the value I delivered to my wife, because like, I gotta cook, I gotta clean, I gotta score points some way. If I got a robot doing it all.
Well,
Right.
I'm
you
back
have
in the
time to learn to
doghouse.
cook at least now.
All right, shop owners, listen up here. I think all of us know we are in one of the most capital intensive businesses there is, and margins are tight, and we're always fighting issues. And then when we make money, what do we do with it? Stock market's up and down all over the place. Well, I get asked a lot about where can I invest my money? I'm a firm believer as business owners, you've got to invest in yourself first. You need to reinvest capital into yourself. So, the number one thing that I've done in this industry in investing was ProShop ERP. We've been using ProShop since 2018, and my payback literally was within weeks. With their per user based pricing, I knew when I made the decision, I only needed to save my workers roughly 1 hour per month. We saw within the first week, we were saving multiple hours per day. That type of ROI just doesn't come along very often. Outside of that, the real value is being able to quickly implement best practices across my entire shop from the time we get an order to the time we ship it, scaling my business with confidence, being able to go out and know that I can deliver on my promise to deliver quality parts to my customer, and then gaining insights into every job, employee, machine, and every process in our business to really drive efficiency and look for opportunities for improvement. That's where the real value in your business drives. So visit ProShopERP.com, book a demo, and start realizing ROI today. That's ProShopERP.com.
And I think that's sort of like pointing to this idea of proximity. And like if we think about it, you've probably gone to this vending machine. I forget what's Freestyle, the Coca-Cola Freestyle machine. Maybe
Oh,
you've
Yeah.
done it at a
You can make,
Fuddruckers, or
like,
you've done
any of your flavors or
any
whatever.
of your
Yeah,
flavors, right?
yeah.
You can punch the buttons. You can get a diet caffeine-free vanilla cherry root beer, right? And like I don't know who would want that, but there might be someone that wants that. Now,
Right.
why can't we offer that to that person now? Is we create the value. Let's say we create value whenever we combine things. In this case, you're combining syrup with soda.
Mhm.
In the current model, when do you do that? You do that months ahead of time or weeks ahead of time. Where do you do it? In a bottling plant far away. You mix it and then you ship it. And then you hope somebody wants that one specific thing. The probability of that person that of there being a market for that is low. And so you carry this inventory. Now, what do you do instead? You wait until someone presses the buttons and then you create the value. That is the
Yeah.
easiest demand to predict is the demand that's already there. So when I'm talking about proximity, I'm not just talking about just in time. I'm talking about actually the creating of the value after demand shows itself. Now you carry no risk. Now the same technology that allows you to do this microdosing technologies, DARPA funded a project in which they use the same technology to take basic materials and create generic drugs. And with the press of a button, you can order 15 of a specific type of drug. And what we can do then is we can put that capability in a rural area that has drug shortages problems, right? And we don't have to carry lots of drugs. We just carry like 15 different ingredients, carbon and whatever, and then we combine it. And the lifespan or the shelf life of these raw ingredients is forever. It's different than just getting it there faster. It's actually thinking about if we create value by combining things, what are the things that we combine? And how can we wait to combine them until someone says they want them, and then we combine it where they say they want them,
Hmm.
you know?
So I'll share an interesting thing that maybe would be a very applicable way in a small way, but to our audience. So, you know, Mike, think about, when you quote a job and it needs cut plate, right?
Yeah.
rather than bar stock or something. And, back in my shop days, this is how, we'd get a quote. It needed 2-inch plate material and it needed to be 6 inches wide by a foot long. And we needed 20 of them.
Right.
Right. So we would call to our material vendors. We would get a quote and it would take 3 or 4 days, in the
Whatever.
best case to get that material in.
Sure.
So a couple weeks ago, I was touring around the Southeast and I went to a shop called Country Aerospace. They had water jet machines and they would stock 4x8 or 4x12 sheets of aluminum plate. And then whatever they needed, they would just water jet the blanks. So rather than waiting 3 or 4 days for that material to arrive, if they got a hot job, they could have those blanks cut that afternoon
Right.
and be machining that evening or the next morning.
Yeah,
And
and
so
I
that's
know.
like adding that value in the cut width of that plate. They were doing it moments after they got the RFQ.
Mm.
And that's not dissimilar to conversations we're having right now with there's families of parts we make that, maybe it goes from half inch, then there's a 3/4 inch and an inch and inch, and whatever, right? And the volumes are such that, we're looking at how can we buy raw material smarter for those jobs. And, traditionally, if this one requires half inch, we're going to buy half inch material for that. If this one's 5/8, 3/4, whatever. And, we're even just looking at, okay, but we could make this whole family out of 3/4. It's 2 extra
Mhm,
rough cuts on the lathe or what I mean, with a lot of our
mhm.
stuff being round, a lot of this is round bar we're talking about. But, so then do I, how much 3/4 inch 6061 round bar do I stock now to handle and be quick response,
Mhm.
under that same scenario, right? Yeah, it's an interesting discussion. Of course, it takes more cash on the front end to stock all that inventory. But if you're creating the value of quick response and you can deliver
Oh,
parts
you
in
can
3
more
days,
than make up for it.
yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, Kaihan, so you were talking about, things going to zero, and I'm sure our audience doesn't love hearing that, but if you can capitalize on the speed, people
Right.
love to know that they can charge 50% more for the same parts if they can deliver in 2 days rather than a week like everyone else.
Right. That's the key, is to not think about selling the atoms. You're selling the results, right? So
Mhm,
like, you could say all Uber did was deliver part of the experience of getting a car 30 seconds faster than a taxi did, right? Part of that experience is knowing that I'm going to have a car and knowing what time I'm going to arrive.
Mhm.
So you get out of your plane before you walk out of the building to see how long the line is for the taxi cab. You pull up your phone and you see a car 4 minutes away, driving this way, coming towards you. There is part of the value that was digitally delivered.
Mhm.
mhm,
And all it did was get 30, and so you can disrupt a whole industry just with a
mhm.
little step in
And
proximity.
even getting out and moving on to what after you've arrived, it's already got your payment information. You don't
Yes.
have to sit there and get the credit
Yes.
card, wait for the receipt and all that. You just get out.
Yeah.
You're done.
Right.
So
Right.
it helps you
There's a
on both
premium that
ends.
they
Yeah.
yeah, they get a premium for
The
that.
convenience value and the
Yep.
frictionless payment value.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what I think
Well,
is, and probably like the outcomes, if you think about like a shop could charge so much more, because for me, the value of waiting 3 minutes to saving 3 minutes by not having to pay is worth a little bit, right? But in your case, 3 minutes could be worth a lot.
Mhm.
3 minutes of downtime, 3 minutes of a broken line. You know what I mean?
mhm.
Yeah, it adds up.
Sure.
Well, I could see a future where some shops decide to put their basic capacity live on their website. Like
Yeah.
we have 10 hours of open mill time on a 10 by 10, inch cube
Mhm.
machine available right now. If you get us your model in the next hour, we could be cutting parts for you tomorrow morning
Mhm.
and automating the process of getting that model, getting
Right.
it, programmed with AI and common work holding fixturing methods, so it's easy to plug and play, the standardized tooling. I mean, it's
Mhm.
basically what Proto Labs, did
Yeah.
a long time ago, but bringing that to every shop instead of just those
Yeah, but
big
like
behemoth guys.
a network, a distributed network of kind of independently owned shops that are all. I've been having very similar conversations to that lately, Paul. So it's
Mhm,
so interesting when you see all these smart people kind of having a very similar conversation. If we knew my shop's capacity, Mike's shop's capacity, the other guy's shop's
mhm,
capacity,
Yes.
and what equipment they had, and what was available and what the market rate is for that. And there was some sort of connector who was saying, hey,
Yeah.
here's how we distribute all the work. And we talked about it in one of the last episodes that we recorded with,
Yeah.
like, wouldn't that help our DIB, the
Sure.
defense
Mhm.
industrial base, if they knew how to distribute all the work to the right folks, and also make sure that they were only distributing it to a network that was CMMC compliant.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Eh,
and that
which
becomes possible because coordination costs come down. As our machinery starts getting IoT, Internet of Things, smart devices on, cameras and sensors and things like that, and that information gets shared, it doesn't take me half an hour to make a phone call. "Hey, Nick, what do you have available? Let me check." And then you talk to someone, and then and that but if we're connected now, it removes the friction.
Mhm.
And that's the whole reason why we see platform business models, right? Like, Ubers and Airbnbs. There's another platform, I'm trying to remember the name right now, EquipShare, right? And you need equipment like construction equipment. It's a platform, and you can access construction equipment and use it and then return it, and it's like a shared
Like
asset.
NetJets does that with like
Yep.
kind of sharing private jets.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, in our industry, we need that model to work in a way that doesn't promote the sort of race to the bottom like some of the platforms
Yeah.
out there that do that,
Yeah.
and I don't know exactly what the mechanism needs to be to make sure that doesn't happen. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's yeah, the
that is
potential is
issue. I mean,
huge.
it definitely, like the price will go up or down depending on the urgency and demand. So now you're moving to supply and demand.
Mhm.
But there are ways to make money on that, like traders are able to figure out how to make money. So it changes. You become more of a marketplace and your pricing becomes dynamic. I have many friends who are traders on Wall Street, and I don't know how they make money, but they make money. So there's got to be a way. There got to be a way.
Yeah.
But even if a shop does not become part of a network, if they can still, like, directly connect somehow to their individual customers
Mhm.
that
Yes.
they know that, yeah, I have capacity immediately without having to pick up that phone call or send
Yes.
an email and wait half a day to get back,
Yes.
that could turn into opportunity that, comes to them
Yeah,
because they
Paul,
have
that
Yeah.
that.
seems like a lot more doable actually. Like you've got all the people you've ever done work for and they have access to, like, the old days is like, look at my equipment list. Here's what machines I have.
Yeah.
But they have no
Mhm.
idea what your capacity is and they have no
Yep.
idea what it would cost for that capacity. So
Mhm.
if they could, like, through some digital interface say, "Hey, I want that capacity on that machine for this job." Like, just kinda
Well,
book it online, like, reserve the capacity.
I have talked to one person a couple months ago that, I mean, maybe this is a similar business model. They have a lathe and a mill in their shop. So everything was running when I toured through except these 2 machines.
Mm.
And they're backed up and he says, I don't have enough capacity to run all the work I've got. I was like, "Well, what about those 2 machines?" Right? Like, I mean, they're just sitting
Mhm.
there.
Mhm.
So he actually has those reserved, and he has 2 customers that pay him a monthly fee, essentially,
Interesting. There you go.
for those to be available at their immediate request.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So
That's great.
they aren't in his schedule. When the
Right.
customer needs something quickly, they go on those 2 machines. And,
Yes.
I mean, it's a it so they're paying for access, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Gosh, this is so funny because it just remembered 22 years ago in 2004, we had a customer of ours at ProCNC that basically owned one of our machines. Like they had enough work of the same type that it always ran there. And we made the schedule for that machine available to them to see online.
Okay,
And not for placing orders really, but for just telling us which jobs they wanted run first.
okay,
This was in 2004, so it was pretty early on, but, it wasn't, but it was that. It was like they had so many different priorities changing all the time. It was basically a bunch of molds, and they could just log on and see, "Oh, mold number A is running tomorrow, mold number B is next. We want
Right.
C to go next." So they would just then they would tell us. We didn't have, like, an interface where they would prioritize it, but they would just email us and say, "Hey, run C instead of B."
yeah,
And
sure.
we would drag it, flip it, and that's what we did. So, yeah, it's possible.
If you can start getting that visibility into your customer, right? You could, if it's humans, that go in when you're delivering something and they check out the other machines and check, maybe do some kind of
Mhm.
like service. So you can start doing some like predictive work with them and say, hey, this part is starting to run low. I think you're going to need a new part
Mhm.
in 9 weeks or whatever. And then, if you can start actually like having cameras or sensors, and then you can start moving towards actually just paying for uptime,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and then the value of that is just much higher. Knowing
Cool.
what category you're competing in. So the thing is, like, what's interesting is like categories, and this stratagem creates something out of nothing, which is one of these five that we talked about at the conference. These categories are really like shockingly powerful. Like, Gatorade, it sells salty water on football fields for years and years and years, and Pepsi and Coke don't see them growing because they're not looking for a category called sports drink. And
Mhm.
so when you start creating these categories, people don't know what to compare it to because there's no one else in that category. And now you start being able to charge anything up to value.
Yeah, Paul, the concept is called time splicing. Or Mike, sorry, you were the one who brought it up. Time splicing is what they call that, where you buy time with
Yeah.
like a I'm on the article on the fabricator, just so the audience can have it, where it's called Need a Light Now. And it's all about quick response manufacturing. This is something that my brother
Mm.
talks about all the time. And
Sure.
this concept of time splicing is where basically you are like buying a section of time from like your powder coater or your heat treater or whoever,
Mhm.
typically like one of those outside services that there's never enough of. And you just
Mhm.
Right.
buy it whether you need it or not, but then you always have it. You're able to offer that quick response and able to win that market share because you can guarantee that you have this certain lead time or whatever.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
super, super interesting example that you
Mhm.
do see in our world.
Hey, it's Paul from Making Chips. If you've been burned by recruiters who don't understand manufacturing, you are not alone. That's exactly why we created Hire MFG Leaders. We're not just recruiters, we're current and former shop owners, and we know what it takes to lead in this industry. Whether you're hiring your next operations leader, sales manager, or production supervisor, we'll help you find someone who actually fits. Learn more at makingchips.com/hire.
Willingness to pay for time is increasing as well,
Mhm.
because the pace of change increases and people just need things faster. Because if this proximity thing starts propagating, then your customers are starting to charge more for things that they can get more quickly to their customers, right? Whatever they're
Mhm.
manufacturing,
Sure.
they're going to get a premium, and then they're willing to pay you the premium. So it's going to work its way through the whole value chain.
And I've definitely seen shops buy or build facilities right next to their big customers.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that, DeMille will walk down the street or across the street to work out a problem or to just communicate. That's huge compared to having to get in a car or on a plane to go visit somebody.
Yep. Yep. You probably want to segment your customers and figure out which ones for which ones is time really important.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
this one company that I've been advising is called Fast Formulator, and what they do is they will, through using some AI, they'll be able to come up with lots of different permutations of different things. So, for example, you have an oil rig and you need a certain type of lubricant, and you can't just use a generic lubricant. It depends on what type of soil you're digging into and what the
Mhm.
temperature is and all that stuff. And so you need a very specific lubricant. But the thing is, if you increase one ingredient, it might interact with another ingredient. It might not be stable. So you have to usually try lots of different combinations before you can find a formulation that is right for that particular use. Now, that can take, say, 2 months of experimentation, but what they can do, and they have 2 or 3 little labs where they have an AI kind of machine that is already programmed with how different materials interact with each other so that they can more quickly get to a hypothesis of what the right formulation will be. Then they can test it out in their labs, and so instead of at 3 months, they could do it in 2 weeks, and that's really valuable. Originally, they started doing it for cosmetics, for like
Mhm.
lotion, right? You want a lotion that's sunscreen, but that's also, doesn't have some kind of chemical. It's not as easy as you think. You have to try lots of those. But a lotion company, they can wait 3 months to come any
Mhm.
formulation. But
Mhm.
the oil rig, if that thing goes down, right? That's
Mhm.
millions of dollars a day, right? So thinking about which
Mm.
customers have a higher time cost
Mhm. Or
is
that
important.
who value the time element more.
Yes, who value the
So
time
here's a
element.
good really good example I've been talking with Mike about. So Mike, you're looking at potentially buy what, 2 big horizontal milling
Yeah.
machines? If they were arriving on your shop floor next week, how big of a deal would it be to have, like, all your fixtures and tombstones in a quick lead time if they were gonna be here next week?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it'd be huge.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
so
versus waiting 3
whoever has
months or
them on the
whatever.
shelf is gonna win that order, but if I'm working with the dealer who sells you that machine tool and I know they have a 12-week lead time for the machine itself, well, you don't need the fixtures till you need
Right.
the machine, so in that case, I'm okay. So that's the same customer where depending on the season and where he's at and, how all the dominoes are falling, like, time could be a massive driver of who's gonna win the deal or who's not.
Yep.
Mhm.
And so we're always juggling that, like, how much do we keep on the shelf and how much, and it's just on the sales side, it's, like, so important to get in early because you need to time everything right so that your customer has what they need when they need it. I think that's the
Mhm.
broader point that you're trying to make, Kaihan.
Yeah, and I think and then maybe, linking that to the, Uber example, the value that you deliver isn't just physical, it's digital and it's informational, and that digital informational component of the value, that you can deliver very quickly. Uber just delivering you information into the car faster. Domino's as well. Domino's, for this one 10-year period that we said, they outperformed Google, their stock price. They didn't have better pizza, but they were able to give you the experience of getting the pizza. It's being made, it's being boxed, it's
Yeah,
being
you can, like,
QA'd, it's
track
shipped.
it.
You can
Yeah.
track it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so you could think about these things that you can add around the core product that give them part of the value, and that stuff can be delivered very quickly,
Yeah.
Mhm.
you know?
Well, it makes me think about, something we often talk about, sort of the riches are in the niches, right? And shops that get very good at one type of thing or a few types of things or certain type of manufacturing often outperform those that are just sort of jack of all trades. And if someone really, you know, got strategic about how to plan what their services are going to be in the future and align those with their strengths and the market that's willing to pay the most for it, like they could become, the go-to expert on making this type of part in, next day delivery that's very customized or very specialized or exact, whatever it might be. And maybe they serve the rocket industry, maybe they serve medical devices, whatever it
Mhm.
might be. But I'm sure there are just almost unlimited opportunities to become like the go-to solution for a certain thing.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of success to be had there.
Yeah, being known for a niche. There's the physical advantage that you're kind of built for a particular purpose, but even just the branding, just the association that people
Hmm.
have. I need this quick, then
Hmm.
I gotta
Yeah.
call
What's the
you.
name of that company? Send?
Yeah,
Yeah. That's
Even in the
Jim's.
name,
Yeah.
yeah.
you hear the speed. So, yeah, we talked about
Yeah.
proximity and we talked about location, but we actually ended up talking about speed even more than that, I think.
Hmm.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm curious, as we kind of start to wrap this up, if you were really to so Nick brought up SendCutSend again. I don't know how familiar you are with this current market of, I don't know what you call them, but these mega factories that are going on, whether it's SendCutSend, Hadrian, OSH
Proto
Cut, there's
Labs.
Proto Labs. Um, so there's this emerging like mega factory, automated deliver parts in 3 days thing going on in the industry. And as Paul indicated, we'll be talking to the CEO of one of them. And then you've got 29,990 other machine shops in the United States that are, it's an average size of, 10 machines, 12 people, that's critical to the industrial base of the United States. And even more narrow it down to the defense industrial base, et cetera. And, basically guys like me, right? I mean, got a couple shops with lots of machines, lots of people making lots of parts that fuel different parts of the economy. In your grand scheme, as you think about all these things, and I mean, what can guys like me do, with potentially limited capex availability, you know, strained cash flows, limited workforce capabilities or, access to
Yep.
workforce development, where can we start to take some of the stuff we've just talked about and like practically put it into changing the future of our business?
Yeah, I think, we tend to, like, keep focusing on the same part of the business. Like, if you came up through sales, then you're focused on sales. If you came up through operations, you to focus on operations. There's a checklist that I shared at the speech that I use. I call it the 9 Ps. I think all models are wrong and some are useful. I've forced this to sell 9 Ps, but it's like 9 places to look. You could look at positioning and your branding. You could look at your core product or service. You can look at your pricing strategy, who pays, when they pay, how they pay. You can look at your placement or your channels. You can look at the physical experience that you deliver. And even in a B2B context, that can be really important. You can look at your processes and operations. You can look at your people, and you can look at your purpose. And if you think through that, there's often one of those that you're not really thinking about that would be low cost to differentiate you in. We tend to focus often on
Where
product
our
and
lane,
place.
right?
Yeah, our lane, what we're used to.
Well, Mike, you gave such a great example of that because you were like, "Oh, this guy's backed up. Why does he have those 2 machines sitting?" And that gentleman understood his customers so well that he was actually getting paid for those to just be available.
Sure.
Most people wouldn't even offer that and get paid to have a machine
Well,
sit there.
yeah.
I mean,
I
that's
wish
like
I could do. I wish I could do that with all of my
how
machines.
the
That'd
hell
be
did this
great.
guy figure it out? He's the only guy getting paid to not be making chips.
Right.
But it's
Maybe
great.
that's an interesting way to do our wrap up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, usually, if you're not making chips, you're not making money unless you're Mike's buddy. No, I was thinking about the wrap up too, and we talked a lot about speed, and we say this in my family all the time, and this is for the audience too. You think of these Hadrians and these mega companies, but we always say it's not the big that eat the small, it's the fast that eat the slow. And so,
Yeah.
that speed element was for me the big takeaway today, and just kind of maybe something to cling to is like, how can I be the fastest instead of the
Mhm.
biggest? So
Mhm.
that's
Yeah,
easy
and
for me, the
proximity can
short
help
guy to
that.
say.
I'll say, yeah.
So,
I think, yeah,
Kaihan, if people wanna reach out and learn more, get a hold of you, ask
yeah,
you to come speak, where would you direct
yeah.
them?
LinkedIn is probably the best place, the easiest one place to go to find me,
Okay.
connect with you there. I'm very active there.
We'll make sure to include your link in the show notes. Yeah, it's been great to have you. Thank you so much. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's definitely some creative and interesting ways of thinking about strategery, as I started with, and yeah, how the shops out there can think about how to take more of their future into their hands as they think about how they craft their business in the future.
Great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
there's
really cool.
so many opportunities, so many opportunities. Just the limitation is our imagination.
Yeah, thanks for joining
Very
us, man.
good.
It's awesome.
All right, take us home, Nick.
Yeah, so unless you're Mike's friend and you're time splicing, if you're not making chips,
You're not making money.
Bam.
bam.
If you're not making chips, you're not making any money. If you're not making chips, you're not making any money.
If you're not making chips, you're not making money. Bam! If you're not making chips, you're not making money. Making money. Bam! Ladies and gentlemen, if you're not making chips, you're not money. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're not making chips, you're not
Making money, 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 not making